Hi, third graders. Welcome to Math MIU 4 Investigations, Unit 2, Lesson 1.7 and 1.8. What are we learning? So today we are using data to compare groups. We're reading and interpreting bar graphs, using 1/2 as a benchmark. We're using summaries such as almost all, very few, half, or more or less than half. And we're representing data using bar graphs and pictographs or picture graphs. Remember, a bar graph is a way to represent data, and it uses height or length of rectangles to compare the data points. Notice that all the graphs have a title, and each axis has a label. So the numbers on the left, it might say the number of students, and the bottom tells you the different categories. Or on this one on the right, it says favorite type of books, types of books here, and the number of students. So those are important to remember when you're making your own bar graph. Pictograph or picture graph is a graph that uses pictures or symbols to represent the data. So in this case, we have the number of years here on the left. We have the title is the book sale, and each of these books with the apple stands for 5 books sold. And that tells us that's the key right down here at the bottom. So we can count 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. That's how you can figure out the number of books sold in each year from this pictograph or picture graph. Half. This is a new vocabulary word that we're going to be using with our graphs to describe the data. So the amount you have when dividing a quantity into 2 equal parts is half. So if I have a whole circle here and I divide it right down the middle, each side is now 1/2 of the whole. Or if you think about a pizza, if I divide my pizza in half, I have 2 really big pieces, but each side is half. You'll play a game with your teacher. Let's review this graph. What is your favorite mealtime? So here I have my title, what is your favorite mealtime? And on the left-hand side, I have the number of students. And notice the intervals. They start at 0 at this line, and each little dashed line there you can see goes up and increases by 5. So my intervals are increasing by 5 each time. So when I count, I've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Along the bottom, I do see the different categories for meals. So I see breakfast, lunch, dinner, and one called Don't Know. I also notice that I have 2 bar graphs for each category, a black one and an orange one. So the black bar graphs represent first grade students, and the orange one represents 5th grade students, and that is in the key right here. Now we can use this information to think about the responses of the 1st and 5th grade students. How are they the same? How are they different? So take a look carefully and think about how they're the same and how they're different. I think it's interesting that in both groups, some of them didn't know which meal was their favorite. That was the same. I think it's also interesting that many more 5th graders chose lunch as their favorite meal than the 1st graders, but 1st graders chose dinner as their favorite meal more than the 5th graders. So lots of different things you can say about the data, comparing it and looking at what's similar and different and making notes of those. We can also answer more questions about the data. How many more 5th graders said lunch was their favorite mealtime than 1st grade? So let's go back. How many more said lunch was their favorite? So we need to look up here at this line, and when I come over, I see it's 25. And then I look at what the 1st graders said. They said there were 10 that answered lunch was their favorite. So I need to find the difference between 25 and 10. One way to do that is to subtract 25 minus 10. And I know that's 15. I know that there's increments. These lines represent 5. I can also count the 5s between my black bar graph and the top of the orange. So 5, 10, 15. That's another way to do it. So the difference is 15. How many fewer fifth graders named dinner as their favorite meal than first graders? How many fewer now? So now we need to look here, and I see 20 first graders said dinner was their favorite, while only 10 fifth graders said that that was their favorite meal. So again, look at the difference here. 10 fewer. That's right. Good job. And then write 3 other things you can tell from looking at the graph. So there's many things you can tell. So I'll let you go ahead and look at the graph and decide for yourself what 3 things that you could say about it. Now, we're going to talk about looking at a strategy of more than half and less than half. So we can record some observations about this data, and we can say something like more than half of the fifth graders chose lunch as their favorite meal. So writing observations and thinking about remember how they're the same and different, and using language such as more than half or less than half to describe the data. So when we're looking at it, maybe we can say, oh, look at this. More than half of first graders either said dinner was their favorite meal or they didn't know. So a lot of you might think that fifth graders preferred lunch to any other meal, and so you could have said more than half said that grade 5 students picked lunchtime. So we would say that lunch is the mode for the fifth grade, and the mode is the category that has more data than any other category. So when we describe the data, statisticians, people who work with data, often use the idea of half to give people an idea of what the data shows. So 1/2 can be a very useful benchmark when you think about describing data. Is 25 a lot of the grade 5 students? Is it close to half of the grade 5 students? Is it less than half? And these are things you can discuss when you're looking at the data. So useful phrases are more than half, less than half, about half, almost all, or very few. These are ways that we can use to describe our data. Now it's your turn. What is your favorite fruit? This is an opportunity for you to make a bar graph. Remember, don't forget the labels. And remember the categories. So I see different types of fruit. I see numbers here. So you're going to make a bar graph. Make each square represent more than one. So look at the numbers. I have 8, 25, 15, and 32. What would be the best way to represent this data? Well, you might want to count by 5s, just like they did on the other one, and count up each bar here as 5 more. And then you could represent all of it. Don't forget to label down here the different categories of fruit. And it's always important to give your graph a title. Here's an opportunity for you to make a picture graph. So what color are your eyes? So here's the survey information of first graders. Eye color, the number of students who answered for each category. So you can make a picture graph. Make each picture represent more than one. Here's another way to make a pictograph is displaying data. Think about these groups of students. How could you represent them into categories? Well, maybe I want to group them by students wearing hats and no hats. So how many students are wearing hats? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 4 wearing no hats. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 without hats. So I have 4 hats, 8 no hats. How could I represent a picture? Maybe I draw a quick little ball cap, and each cap represents 2 students. So for the first category, hats, I would draw a picture of a hat here and here. If each hat represented 2, that would be 4. And for the no hat category, how many hats would I need to draw? Well, remember there were 8 students without hats, so I would need to draw a hat 4 times. So 2, 4, 6, 8. And then you can answer the questions about your data. And here's a little more practice, page 91, for you to do independently in your green book. All right, well, I hope this video was helpful, and have a great day.